Hey everybody, it's the Ioniq guy here. And today's video is going to be about the Ioniq 6, which is finally official and coming later this year. So if you want to find out more, stay tuned. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. I cover all things Ioniq, including the Ioniq 5, the upcoming Ioniq 6, and the yet-to-be-announced Ioniq 7. So last night I attended a press conference with Hyundai about the Ioniq 6, which is now official. So we learned a lot about the car last night. We got to ask some questions to Hyundai's engineers and designers. This was my first press conference, hopefully the first of many to come. So several weeks ago, we saw photos and renders of the Ioniq 6, but we didn't get anything really official. Some other YouTubers got access to the car and they did short walkthrough videos and sat in the car and talked about what they could see and feel. They didn't get to drive the car. Driving dynamics are still up in the air, but last night we did find out a lot of details about the car. So let's start with the underpinnings. So similar to the Ioniq 5, it has a nearly 3-meter wheelbase, 2.95 meters, which is just a couple inches short. About 1900 millimeters wide, which is about half an inch narrower than the Ioniq 5. So something that's surprising is the car is 4.85 meters long, which is 9 inches longer than the Ioniq 5. Now, the Ioniq 5 is a big car, so stretching it out 9 inches, that's a pretty long car. But it does almost have the exact same wheelbase as the Ioniq 5, so the cabin in this car should be pretty spacious, because, I mean, the Ioniq 5 here is enormous. I can fit 5 people in here, no problem. So a couple design mantras that kept coming up during the event were the cabin being cocoon-like, meaning it's cozy, it's warm, it's a safe place to be. They really stressed the cocoon-likeness of the cabin. And they also stressed that it's an electrified streamliner. So a streamliner is basically a design that's very aerodynamic, and this car is definitely aerodynamic. It has a 0.21 drag coefficient, which is top of the pack in terms of electric cars. So the car's very efficient, and it's going to just cut through the air. Now, just as a point of reference, the Ioniq 5 has a drag coefficient of 0.29. So 0.21, that's almost 30% better. So somebody at the event asked who the Ioniq 6 was going to be marketed towards. So with the Ioniq 5, they were really going after young families, people who needed some space. And the Ioniq 6 is more directed towards young single people, people who don't have kids, families. I'm not really sure why they single that group out, because if the car has just as big of an interior as the Ioniq 5, it's really going to be a decent family car. I know plenty of people with families that still drive sedans. I mean, I grew up, we were a family of 4. We never had an SUV. We always had sedans, and we made it work. We had a roof rack, a cargo box on top of the car. So sedans work for families too. It's not just SUVs. So the car is going to be offered in 2 battery sizes, a 53 kilowatt hour and a 77.4 kilowatt hour, which is identical to the Ioniq 5. Both versions are going to be available in rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive version will be able to sprint to 62 miles per hour in 5.1 seconds. So it's a little bit slower than the Ioniq 5, but we also see the Ioniq 5 is a little bit faster in real life than it is on paper. So maybe the same thing will hold true for the Ioniq 6. Maybe it'll come in the sub 5-second time frame for 0 to 60. The drivetrain for the Ioniq 6 all-wheel drive is more or less the same as the Ioniq 5. You get 320 horsepower, 239 kilowatts, 446 pound-feet of torque, or 605 newton meters. So if you go ahead and get the Ioniq 6 with the big battery and rear-wheel drive, they're quoting 379 miles of range. That's awesome to see. And something that kept coming up in the Q&A at the end of the press conference was that Hyundai has really looked at the efficiency of everything with the car and this platform, the eGMP platform, since the Ioniq 5 was released. They talked about motor efficiency, electronics efficiency. They talked about energy density, so being able to put more energy into a slightly smaller mass-wise battery. You can save a lot of weight by creating a more energy-dense battery that doesn't use as much material. So the 53 kilowatt hour car with 18-inch tires is quoting an efficiency of 14 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers or 4.4 miles per kilowatt hour, which will give it a range of about 234 miles. The car is going to have the same charging specs as the Ioniq 5, 10 to 80% in 18 minutes, which that's what people are seeing. So that's the drivetrain in a nutshell, basically identical to the Ioniq 5. So let's talk a little bit about the design. The car is going to come in a wide variety of colors, which is a far cry from the Ioniq 5. So let me just name off some of the colors. Gravity Gold Matte, Abyss Black Pearl, Serenity White Pearl, Curated Silver Metallic, Nocturne Gray Metallic, Nocturne Gray Matte, Transmission Blue Pearl, Biophilic Blue Pearl, Ultimate Red Metallic, Digital Green Pearl, Digital Green Matte, and Bite Blue. So that's interesting. They have the same color in gloss and matte. That's going to be really interesting to see how those look. I love the fact that they're doing all these cool matte colors. That's a really fun thing that we haven't seen any other automakers really do. So the interior colors that are going to be available are dark gray with light gray, dark olive green with light gray, and black with pale brown and black. So something they really stressed was how many environmentally friendly materials they use in here, recycled materials. They specifically mentioned fishing nets that have been pulled from the ocean to make the carpets for the car. So that's pretty cool. So the car is covered in 700 parametric pixels. So if you've seen photos of the car, I'm going to have some photos here right now. This car is just littered in LED lights. And something that you'll notice in the video presentation that I'm going to link below that shows off the car is there's all sorts of cool welcome animations. So as you approach the car, the lights will go back and forth on the tail light and just kind of welcome you as you approach the car. So really cool design detail there. I know a lot of automakers are starting to do this kind of light show thing when you approach the car. The Cadillac Lyriq is the big one that comes to mind. The Hummer EV does something similar. The Rivian R1T and R1S also do that. So it's definitely an automotive trend, but it gives the car some personality. The car is going to have multiple adjustable lighting zones, so the upper portion of the door will be a different color than the lower portion of the door. So that's really going to create some pretty cool atmosphere in the car. Guess what? Hyundai's finally installing USB-C ports in their electric cars. Who would have thought? 4 USB-C ports, 1 USB-A. So bye-bye USB-A, USB-C's making its entrance into Hyundai's cars. The car obviously is going to be compatible with the V2L system. Another neat little thing that the Ioniq 6 does is the 4 pixel dots in the center of the steering wheel are going to have LED lights behind them, which will show you your battery state of charge, similar to on the charging port. The Ioniq 6 is going to feature an 8-speaker sound system. So some journalists asked the panel last night about over-the-air updates. And as an Ioniq 5 owner, this was a little bit disheartening to me. They said the Ioniq 6 is going to be the first Hyundai electric car that's going to be able to receive over-the-air updates similar to Tesla that can change programming to the drivetrain, the charging system, autonomous driving, and obviously the infotainment and map system. But hearing them say this doesn't give me a lot of hope for any major updates coming to the 2022 Ioniq 5 in terms of drivetrain, charging, autonomous driving. It seems like moving forward from this point is going to be where they really start to incorporate over-the-air updates into their cars. So a neat feature that the Ioniq 6 is going to have is something called EV Performance Tune-Up System. And you'll be able to go into a menu in the infotainment screen, and you'll be able to adjust steering effort, motor power, accelerator pedal sensitivity, and driveline modes. So this is going to allow you to set custom drive modes that you can press from the button here on the steering wheel that'll just put the car into your favorite mode, how you want the car to react depending on your mood. I think that's really neat. I hope something like that comes to the Ioniq 5 soon. That would be really fun to just get to mess around with that and really dial in your settings to you and only you. So all the same safety systems are here from the Ioniq 5. You get Highway Drive Assist 2, Smart Cruise Control, Forward Collision Avoidance Assist, Junction Crossing, Lane Changing, Oncoming, and Lane Changing Side. So the car will be just as safe as the Ioniq 5 in terms of driver assistance systems, so glad to see that. There weren't any new systems that they were talking about adding to the Ioniq 6 though, so it's just same across the board. So when does the Ioniq 6 go on sale? So production is going to start Q3 of this year, and deliveries in Korea and Europe are going to start at the end of 2022. So I know most of my viewers are in the United States, so for those of you here, you're going to have to wait until Q1 of 2023 to purchase an Ioniq 6 here. Production for US models is going to begin in Q1 2023, and deliveries will start later that quarter. So another question that came up during the press conference was, will this Ioniq 6 be built at the fancy new EV factory here in the US? And the answer was no. They don't have any plans to manufacture the Ioniq 6 in America. So during the press conference, they showed us multiple videos showing the Ioniq 5 alongside the Ioniq 6 and the Ioniq 7 concept car. And I gotta say, I am as excited as I am about the Ioniq 6, I am very excited about the Ioniq 7. If the production version looks anything like the concept, that is going to be a sweet vehicle. So Hyundai made a point that their future cars aren't going to look exactly like each other. So the Ioniq 7 isn't going to just look like a scaled up version of the Ioniq 5. So I think that's cool. I think that's a cool idea to kind of make every car its own little thing. They really want different people with different personalities to choose a car based on a feeling that they have for it. They don't want you to just say, hey, I need the bigger version of the Ioniq 5, so I'm going to get that one because it looks like that. They want you to pick a car because you really like the way it looks. So the announcement for the North American model is going to be sometime in November, so stay tuned for that. We'll probably find out trim levels, pricing. They'll probably open up pre-orders since that's what every car maker does now with every new car that comes out. And on top of that, they told us that this Friday we're going to be getting some news about the first Ioniq N-line car, which is most likely going to be the Ioniq 5N, but they also aren't ruling out the fact that there might be an Ioniq 6 N-line, which, very cool. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. There's going to be more news coming out on Friday about the N-line announcement. Let me know down below. Are you guys interested in the Ioniq 6? Or are you going to hold out for an Ioniq 5 or Ioniq 7? There's going to be 11 electric car models in Hyundai's lineup by 2030. So there's going to be a lot more cars coming out. If these cars don't tickle your fancy, I'm sure something will. So as always, guys, I appreciate you watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already done so. There's going to be a lot more news coming soon, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.